Hey friends, Jamie here. Listen to me carefully because I'm about to show you exactly how I threw away $3.5 million over my lifetime. And it's all because a long time ago when I was young, I wasn't thinking like an investor. I was thinking like a consumer, like almost every American in society does today. And even with this huge epic screw up on my part, I still managed to go from near bankruptcy at age 48 to financially independent in about 8 years, which is very fast. And I did it through epic trial and error, through getting my ass kicked and getting my teeth kicked in through mistakes, but also by taking massive action, a phrase I took from Tony Robbins, and teaching myself how to increase my income, how to save, how to invest, and how to make great returns. So let's go back in time though and talk about how I didn't even need to go through near bankruptcy and I didn't even need to drink from a fire hose and teach myself financial education at such a late stage in life at 48 years old. Because I would have never been in that situation in the first place if I didn't blow my money on stupid stuff and I knew how to invest when I was, let's say, in my 20s. We're going to go back in time and I'm going to scream at myself, hey, snap out of it. Stop blowing your money and start investing your money. That's what I would say to my young, ignorant financial self. But I'm going to give my younger self a little bit of grace because this is not an accident that people don't know how to do this in their 20s. We are not taught financial frugality investing in school. The entire economic machine in America is created for one reason: to trick you, to hoodwink you, to get you to spend more money every time you turn around. That's why when you go into Costco and say, I'm only going to spend $100, you come out with a $700 cart filled with random things you never even wanted. And that is why at a very young age, even like 10 years old, you have to have the cool pair of Nikes or you have to have the cool kind of phone that all your friends have. We are indoctrinated into this society, and it's very difficult to train yourself to reverse your thinking, but it has to happen. So I'm going to walk you through my personal story. Everything on this channel is my life, my mistakes, my learnings. Nothing, not an article I found, nothing ChatGPT spit me out. So I'm going to walk you through all the biggest, stupidest purchases I made when I was young growing up and how those could have been millions today if I had just not bought those things, which I really didn't need. And here's what I did with the money I had. Okay, I'm going to look at my notes so I don't forget anything. Imagine 1992. I was this little grungy looking guy, but I worked really hard. I got a job when I was a senior in high school. It was a really dangerous frozen food warehouse with forklifts everywhere that violated every OSHA rule in the book. I almost had my foot crushed by a forklift, but I worked about 4 years there and got to live with my parents during that time. And I had saved up $12,000 by the time I was about 19. Now, that is a lot of money for a young guy that age. And not to mention, it was 30 years ago. But you know why I had that money? You know, I was so determined to save up that money because I wanted an old school muscle car because a lot of my friends had that. It was the cool kind of punk rockish thing to have. And I bought one. I bought myself a 1970 Dodge Super Bee for about $3,500. And then if you add all the mechanical bills I put into and various upgrades, when I was all done having my fun with that car, I spent about $10,000 on that car. And because I was thinking like a consumer and I just wanted to have this cool thing so I could be cool for a year or two, I did not invest that money. So I could have invested that money into two things. Let's just use two things for example. One, Apple, which was kind of like would have been a moonshot example. But two, just the S&P 500, which is very easy to find, very easy to put your money into, very predictable. Everyone suggests the S&P 500. Apple, granted, would have been a little tougher to know it was going to go to the moon way back then. But still, as an example, here's what I could have had investing that $12,000 instead of buying it in some muscle car that's probably in a junkyard right now. If I had invested that $12,000 into Apple today using a tool I use called the Stockulator, I can see that would have been worth 3.5 million bucks. Just that $10,000 muscle car would have been worth $3.5 million today had I invested that in Apple. But let's say I just put it in the S&P 500. Even that, which is very safe, which makes about something like 7 to 10% or 11% on the average for the last 30 years, that would have also been $87,000. Not 3.5 million bucks, but that is a lot of dough. Let's move on to epic mistake number 2. In 1996, I graduated college and I had this treat yourself mentality that a lot of people have. So I went to an Acura dealership and I wanted to get an Acura Integra, which is the cool new thing. And of course, I fell for every smooth talking line the car salesman said to me. And I leased one for a few years. So that was a few $100 a month leasing. And then I bought it after that. So I did everything wrong with buying this car. So this car totally, with the stupid idea of leasing and the stupid idea of buying it after it was being leased, added up to, I'm guessing, about $35,000. So take $35,000 into a 1996 Acura, spent there instead of investing into Apple. I robbed myself out of $1.2 million today. And if I would have put that $35,000 into the Acura, into the S&P 500 at that time, today it'd be worth $305,000. So let's move on to epic financial mistake number 3. I had to have a classic car. You can probably pick up right now, right by now, I have a weakness for cars and car payments, but you know what? So does everyone else in America. It's one of the number one money wasters in America, where people buy new cars and have this car payment. Okay, so the pattern continues. I hadn't learned anything from my mistakes at this point, so I bought this classic car for about $6,000 because I thought it'd be fun to go to all these car shows and do all this stuff. And let me just say, I didn't have a lot of money back then. This was like almost everything I had. I would save up for months and months and months and then buy these cars. Okay. But if I had invested that money now into Apple, that would be worth $350,000 today. If I invested that money in 2002 into the S&P 500, it would be worth $26,000 today. Now let's go on to mistake number 4. Finally, I stopped blowing my money on cars, but I just blew my money on something else. So in 2000, about 2005, everyone was trying to get into the housing market. It was a big bubble, if you recall. It had all crashed in 2008. They made a movie about it called The Big Short. Well, I was one of those idiots. I jumped in and bought a house because all my friends were bragging about how much money they had made on the houses they had bought. So to get into this condo, and I'm only going to talk about the down payment, it was about $10,000, but when you added in a couple years of payments, and I'll just fess up that we lost the house, the bank had to come and take it back. But when it was all said and done, it was $100,000 down the drain because the house lost all of its value and many other reasons. We just couldn't maintain it. If I had taken that same $100,000 and put it into Apple during this time around 2005, that would be worth $5.8 million today. And if I put it in the S&P 500, that would be worth $435,000 today. So let me pause here and hope this sinks in. So I want you to really think about, when you buy a house or you buy property, that same money you're putting into these homes can go into the market and they can earn you a lot of money as well. You don't have to go buy a house. It's like this American brainwashing thing. It's like, first thing you do is go buy a house. In my case, unfortunately, I lost the house and I had to go back to the bank. That was a very unusual situation in 2008. I mean, it happened to so many people. It was a global economic shift that was historically hadn't been seen in like 150 years. So it was a fluke. But nonetheless, even if even if the condo didn't go back to the bank, I still put $100,000 into it at some point. And that $100,000, if I just kept it and rented, would have been worth $435,000 in the S&P 500 today. And it would have been worth $5.8 million if I put it in Apple. Even if I put it in diversified tech funds, it'd be worth millions. So that condo, I looked it up the other day, it ain't nearly worth what I would have earned if I put that in stocks instead. So I want you to think about that. And that's part of this video, is like, think like an investor, not a consumer. Okay. Buying a house isn't always the thing that's going to earn you the most money. because that money could go into investments. Okay, mistake number 5. So, right around 2007, I fell for all the stuff on TV about be your own boss, yada, yada, yada. I hated my job. I hated my boss. He was a jerk. So, I just said, screw it. With very little savings, I went out and started a small business. And that didn't work out. Like 95% of small businesses never do. But to get started cost me about $10,000 to get in. Now, that $10,000, if I would have taken that instead of a small business around 2007, and I would have put it into something like S&P 500 again, that'd be worth like $43,000 right now. And you know what? Right around then, if you were really doing your research and you were thinking like an investor, not a consumer, you might have spotted Nvidia. And if you put $10,000 into Nvidia in 2017, and I don't have the exact numbers, but I'm telling you, it's probably worth millions, right? Because that Nvidia just went to the moon. It's up like 25,000% or something like that. Now, I'm going to read my notes. Adding all of these epic mistakes up. I had the Super B for $10,000. I had the Acura for $35,000. I had to have the classic car for $6,000. I had to put a down payment and make some payments on a condo for $100,000. Then I had to start the small business for $10,000. We're talking about $161,000 total. Every single thing on this list I didn't have to do. And they weren't even necessities. And they weren't even really a roof over your head and groceries, although you could argue the condo was, but I could have rented for so much cheaper. These are all conscious decisions I made. For whatever reason, they made sense to me at the time, and now I know are categorically epic mistakes. Because if I would have put all that money into Apple, it would be worth approximately $10 million today. If I invested all that money into the S&P 500, which is very easy to do, very safe, that would be worth $1,726,000 today. Let that sink in, my friends. I spent myself out of being a multimillionaire completely unnecessarily. I stole from myself $1.7 million, which I could have earned if I put it in the S&P 500. And if I had that now, I would be making $68,000 a year passive income. That's money while I sleep, money I earn while I travel, whatever. And I could have retired at about 40 and lived off that money the rest of my life and just had it grow and grow and grow. So these very poor financial decisions cost me 16 years of high anxiety jobs, miserable long commutes. Probably was a big reason my marriage fell apart. Stress issues, medical issues, and not to mention having to work and be chained at a desk for a huge percentage of my life. So were all those cars, those treat yourself moments worth it? No. And I hope if you're younger, or even if you're resetting your life in your late 40s like I was, that all this sinks into you. Learn from my mistakes and understand that everything you buy, it's not just like $1,000 for a thing like a TV, okay? It's actually 10, 20, maybe even $100,000 that you're robbing from your future self because you think you need this fancy new gadget. I'm telling you, you don't. It ain't worth it. What will this purchase be worth 20 years from now if I invested that same money? I want you to reframe your mind, okay? That $50,000 car is not just $50,000 and it's going to depreciate down to virtually nothing trade-in value. It's actually worth $500,000 in future value if you invested it. So for some quick math, here's the real cost. When you buy something for $10,000, you're actually spending $100,000 of future money. Every purchase should be a question in your mind. Is this worth my freedom? Okay. And once you think like an investor, a lot of your consumer urges fade. Now, I'm not talking about things you need to be alive, like groceries. And I'm not talking about living like such a skinflint that you never have anything in your life. But most people are blowing stuff unnecessarily like I did. And that's the stuff we need to get control of. So here's what I could have very easily done instead. And when I take the hot tub time machine and I go back and I talk to my younger self, which will never happen, but if I could, here's what I would point out to younger Jamie. I would say, Look, just get used cars. You could have bought a $5,000 reliable car like a Honda or a Toyota, and those are just bulletproof cars and they just seem to run forever. You could have rented instead of buying a condo, and you could have invested the difference. And for this stupid fix I had with classic cars and muscle cars, I could have easily rented some sort of fun car for a week or so or a weekend and got it out of my system and then just went back to my normal life. And that $150,000 I was spending here and there for just stupid reasons would be $1.65 billion today if I invested that over those same time periods in the S&P 500. Here's my current reality today. After decades of spending money, I finally got it through my thick skull that I should be investing that money instead of spending that money on crap I don't need. Now, every spare dollar I have goes into investing instead of spending for as long as I live. And finally, because I've been doing this 8 years, I'm starting to generate some real good returns on my nest egg. Now I can finally live a little because my money tree is giving me free money. So I'm now back to spending a little bit, but it doesn't matter anymore because that's money my investments have made. And I can't even tell you, I'm not a materialistic guy. I don't need to go out and buy fancy things, but the anxiety off my chest of knowing that I have FU money is worth every minute and hour and effort I put into making this a reality for myself. My only regret is I wish I had learned this at age 25 and not age 48. But at least I figured out because most people never do. Okay, so I've got an action plan for you, so listen up. This week, I want you to list every major purchase you've made in the last 10 years. Use a compound interest calculator. I'll put a link in the description and use this interest calculator to see what those purchases would have been worth. The commitment: decide today to think like an investor and not a consumer. Set up automatic investing this week, okay? The purchases: before buying anything over $500, calculate the 30-year cost, find cheaper alternatives, and invest the difference. Don't just have that money pile up and then buy something else like a vacation. Start now because every day you wait is costing you compound interest growth. And here's my closing call to action. The promise has been delivered. You now know exactly how much my consumer mindset cost me. I threw away $3.5 million on stuff that is now worthless. And here's the opportunity. You don't have to make my mistakes. Share your biggest money mistakes in the comments, please. Let's learn together and calculate what one major purchase would be if you had invested it. And remember, every dollar you spend is a vote. Are you voting for financial freedom or are you voting for financial slavery? Stop being a consumer. Start being an investor. Your future self will get down on the knees and kiss your toes out of gratitude. Thank you for listening. This is Jamie out. If you like this content, please like and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video.